B5EKU. I live in Southern California. A little background on this image first. I have the repeater I'm speaking about is up on a mountain at the north end of Los Angeles County, up on Oat Mountain. And I was working on the repeater one day, and I went up early, and I left, which is odd. I left about midday, and as I was heading down, I just happened to glance in one of the rear view mirrors, and I saw this. That's the site right there. And I looked at it, and I just had to jam the brakes on and jump out and take a picture of it. It was breathtaking. And that view from up there, when it's clear, when we can see, it's a beautiful, beautiful view. All right, let's go on. Okay, I'm owner and trustee of K6PUW. It does not belong to a club, it belongs to me. There's a lot of pluses and a lot of minuses to that, and maybe I'll get into that as we go along here. But it's a very wide area coverage open system, which is something kind of odd in Southern California, especially open systems in UHF. There's a lot of systems that are very, very closed. And the wide area comes because the call, K6PUW, was a very good friend of mine who's now passed away, and using his call in honor of him, he taught me a lot about repeaters. But he, back in the very early 70s, jumped on and got a very wide area coverage channel assignment from Scrubber. And it passed on to me when I got the repeater. So I hung on to it and hang on because it's almost worth gold in Southern California. And I'll show you a site coverage as part of the presentation. Okay, multi-mode repeaters. That's what I have, multi-mode repeater. We're going to talk about what is it, and we're going to talk about what it is not. And it's, as I said before, K6PUW. Get out of here. Okay, what is it? It's digital voice repeater. It only does digital voice. The protocols that it uses are D-Star, DMR, C4FM, which is also called Fusion, P25, NXDN. And in experimental modes, we have, and this is not on my machine yet, FM and M17. FM, you all know, is analog FM. M17 is an open source digital protocol that I think Jim's going to talk a little bit about it, but it's being tweaked for the amateur radio service. It was started outside of amateur radio, and they're tweaking it for amateur radio. And that says a lot, because I don't know how familiar everyone is with digital voice, but D-Star and C4FM were created for amateur radio and strictly as amateur radio protocols. They're based amateur radio. It all bases on basically your call sign, where DMR, P25, and NXDN came out of the commercial world. And some of them are a little more friendly to amateur radio than others are. DMR is not necessarily that friendly towards amateur radio. Anybody has ever tried to program their radio for DMR radio from scratch, get an idea. But okay, that's basically what a multi-mode repeater is. It does deal. Okay, what it is not is FM. Right now, FM analog, especially in Southern California, there are I couldn't even count the number of FM repeaters there are in Southern California. And that goes from the Grapevine all the way down to the Mexican border. It's just way too many, and it is just very, very cluttered with repeaters. Uh, it is not analog of any means right now. It is not free DV yet. Free DV is another protocol that's being tweaked by or created by some amateurs uh, to replace some of the proprietary digital protocols that are in some of the like. Well, I don't know if they want to replace DMR or not, but I know they're trying to get in and do an open source. And it also is not HF digital modes like WJST and all of the digital modes. It's not for that. It's for neat communications, which I really like. It does no hardware transcoding between modes, which means that you can't do D star to D star hardware-wise. Okay, software is a different story. Now, there's an exception to every rule, and this is also because on K6PUW on XRF 002 alpha, there are hardware decoding, hardware transcoding between that and DMR plus. And we put that on there way back in the, well, right about 3 years ago. It was one of the first hardware decoders around. And it's on the first 6 channels of XRF. Anybody needs to know any of this, you can email me after. I've got email addresses and stuff. But the repeater does not do that. It strictly does the modes in and out. Anything you want to do with them, you have to do yourself, and it will not, because it complicates. If you put hardware on it, it's going to complicate it a fair amount. As anybody that's done hardware transcoding knows, it's not easy. Oops, going the wrong way. Okay, what are the drawbacks? Does one mode at a time. You only do one mode at a time. That goes along with the no transcoding, and that's an educational thing that users have to get used to. There's a slight delay in recognizing a new mode once hang time has expired. There's a hang time, which means if I'm on DMR and I let up on the key, I have a hang time set up. It will stay listening in DMR so that the QSOs won't really get interrupted for a certain period of time. Once that it's expired, then the modem goes into a mode where it's listening for other modes, and sometimes it might take a little bit extra time to find it. Oh, come on, why are you going the wrong way? Okay, there are positives here. And that's why we're doing it. System utilization. It's easy to utilize a system that does more than one mode. How many FM repeaters are sitting 99% idle? You know, and I think no matter where you are, and there are exceptions, but I think where you are, you're going to find out most FM repeaters sit idle. And this is a way to utilize it better, because if I have noticed when I had mine on a FM, K6PUW used to be an FM system until it went D-Star, and then from D-Star it went to multi-mode. Multi-mode, it has gotten much more utilization in multi-mode than it almost ever did as an FM. Okay, channel utilization. You know, it's a lot better to have more than one mode on a channel, because it frees up channels, which to resource utilization. You free up, because you don't have one mode on a channel, and I think you're helping out the whole spectrum and spectrum utility anyway. And this is a big one right here. A lot less expensive than putting 5 separate repeaters on the air that all have this basically same coverage. And you'll see when I show pictures of the repeater. It's a lot less expensive. It's a lot less in everything, from the RF part all the way down to the digital part. All right, let's see what we have next. Okay, there he is. Okay, this is K6PUW. This was right after I first put it in. This is a pair of max tracks. I no longer have a max track running as the transmit. I have a CDM 1225 running as transmit. Max tracks are a little tough with high duty cycles. The CDM loves it. You can pump you can pump almost full power out of it constantly. This down here is the power supply. It's 50 amp Astron with we upgraded it with the more tolerant MOSFETs, and it can go 50 amps key down. Doesn't do it with this setup here. Whoops, go back. I'm lucky to be pulling 7 amps on the full transmit. This is a tighter shot of the RF deck. This is over on this side is the modem with the Raspberry Pi that controls the modem. This was the original modem. I've changed it since then. This is a ZUM modem that worked okay when I first put it in, but there were a few little issues, and I had to change out, and I did so with a more robust modem, which is coming up. This is RF, a 12-volt power distribution. This little guy right here is a savior. It's a thermal switch. Go one more. Okay, this is now the CDM. And the thermal switch, I have a sensor here in the heat sink. And when it reaches a certain temperature, there's 2 of these little bitty fans here, and they turn on, and they sound like jet engines going. I mean, these things move some air. The one back here is on constantly. It's a low volume, but it keeps air flowing over it no matter what. This is you notice the modems go on here. This is the circulator. It goes from the circulator up to another shelf, which has the duplexers and the pass and the notch cavities on it. And because this site is this is a neat site, and this is why it's a neat site. Ah, God, nope, wrong way. Go back. All right, there we go. Okay, there we go. See that little brown box right there? That's a great thing to have at your repeater site, especially during the rattlesnake season. You have to be careful during rattlesnake season. All right, this is the modem. This is the new modem. It's an RF Builders STM32DV. It has one thing really neat. It has multi-turn pots. It's something that the Zoom board did not have on it, and it made it a lot trickier to actually get configured and to set all the levels on there. It's knock on wood. It's been very reliable. It's been running, and I do run Pi-Star on it. I control the whole repeater with Pi-Star. That I'm thrilled at how well it works, especially with Pi-Star. They saved numerous trips driving up to the hill, which is about 35 to 45 minutes from my house. Relatively close for California. All right. I'm running the CDM 1225 at 18 watts output. It's a 25 water. Goes through a circulator, pass can, goes into duplexes, 100 feet of 7/8 inch heliacs into a roughly 7.5 dB 4-pole Omni. Say roughly because antenna gain measurements are really tough. It's close enough. The antenna is actually sitting at about 105 feet. No, not quite that high. I'd say 95 feet above the ground. It's one solid piece of a heliax that runs from the antenna into and it's showing about with the gain it's right and the loss it's roughly showing about almost 30 watts we're giving to the antenna, give or take. All right, this is my coverage, and I cut it short because I should have done it at a much larger distance. Repeaters right up here, mountains all around here. This is the high desert up here. Los Angeles Basin's here, to our Oxnard out towards Santa Barbara. This is down to Orange County. I have already hit the repeater handheld in the back of a cruise ship. We were off the coast of Baja California, south of Ensenada, and it was a pretty doggone good signal, and that's running with that power. I've been very happy with the coverage. Actually, this doesn't show. I don't think this is a true indication, because I used to go to the Edwards Air Force Base, which is pretty far north up here in the High Valley, air show, and when I had a phone patch on my analog machine, I used to be able to phone patch into home from the tarmac at Edwards. All right, come on, right. So that's pretty neat. The coverage from that mountain is really good. The only thing that gets in the way is the mountains. There's not much we can do about them. You know, you go up 4,000 feet, you're going to find 6,000 and 7,000 foot mountains in your way. You go 6,000 feet, you're going to find 8,000 and 9,000 foot mountains in your way. But hey, that's the fun of living in mountains. Okay, what do we got here? All right, this is the webpage for k6puw.com. Please visit it, if you will. You saw this here. This gentleman here, I had the good fortune of actually meeting him in person. I had talked with him a couple of times. It's Jonathan Naylor. G4KLX. He is the brains behind, I would have to say, the digital revolution since the beginning of, right past the beginning of D-Star. This man's absolutely incredible. I happened to be in London, and about a month before we went on our trip, I emailed him. I had talked to him a couple of times on the air. I said, hey, you know, I'm gonna be in London. Can we meet for a pint or something? And he said, oh, I'd love to come up. He lives down in Bristol, which is kind of close to the ocean from London. And he took the train up, and he spent, I'd say a good 3 hours. And he is by far, what a gentleman. I mean, I can't say too many nice things about it. About being a heck of a lot smarter than I am. He is incredibly smart. He wrote MMDVM and who knows what else, which has just absolutely taken over the digital world. I mean, chances are, and Jim might agree with me, if you're on digital, if you're working digital voice, I'd say 99.99999% of digital voice goes through MMDVM. And he's a very funny, very nice guy. He's absolute epitome of what amateur radio is supposed to be. I just hope to get back and meet him again and buy him another pint and have lunch with him again. He's terrific. But yeah, if you go on the site, and especially for a site like I have, this is an important button on there. All right, let's see, where am I? All right, here we go. Okay, all right, here we go. All right, I'm on 447-200 down 5 megahertz, which is, we're minus in Southern California. I know it changes all over. D-Star is persistently connected to XRF 002 alpha. DMR to talk group 31620 Brandmeister. Fusion talk group 00170 FCS, which is the SoCal link. P25 and NXDN are on the talk group 10200, which is a North America link on. Let's see where I am. So I'm surprised P25 is really picking up. I have a lot of fusion. When I first got it on, there was a lot of D-Star and a lot of DMR, very little fusion, and almost no P25. Within the last, I'd say, year, the tables have turned. For some reason, DMR is not quite as hot as it used to be. Unfortunately, one of my favorite, D-Star, is down. Fusion has picked up like crazy. P25 is just really smoking right now, and NXDN is just starting to creep in. Which NXDN is the only radio I don't have, so I have to either go on my Open Spot 3 or DV switch to catch NXDN. But I'm surprised at how all these are, and which that does do. It keeps the repeater in use. The repeater's just, I'll look at the S meter, and a lot of times, it's on, and there's some motor to it. Which I missed a point, and I'm sorry. I'm not reading off the script, but I missed one point. Jim will probably touch on this a little bit. But with a multi-mode repeater, there is some education you have to give to the users, because you have to make sure the users realize that if they can't get in, the repeater's not off the air. Look at your S meter. Look at your activity LED. Look at something to tell you if, you know, if it's being used. Break squelch and see if you hear a buzz saw, something. But if you can't get in, don't aggravate the repeater owner and say your repeater's broken, your repeater's down, because you can cause early heart failure that way. Yeah. So there's one little point I wanted to get across, but it's a little education. Hey, you know, it's like when you tune the bands, you listen to see if anything's being used. If it's not being used, well, use it. Well, same thing here. All right, let's see, what else do I have here? Okay. I absolutely want to thank you guys for, I hope my presentation has given a little bit, you know, to you, of understanding and all to you. I don't hide. There's my email. Dan, you're welcome to give out my telephone number if somebody so desires. I'm around quite a bit, or you can even catch me on the air sometimes. It just depends on which mode I happen to be listening to. Of course, we'll be around for a while for any questions, because I understand Dan said that there's a Q&A session after, so we'll be around. But keep that, you know, keep the email. If you do have any questions, I'm happy to help answer anything that I possibly can. I love experimentation. I love repeaters, and it's a combination of two that I'm just very, very happy with. So, okay.
Don, I'd like to, if you would, after the presentation, if you will send me, email your presentation to me after we're all done here.
Okay, yeah, I have DVDs available for $29.95. Yes, I will do that. Let me get out of stop share. Here we go. Okay, yeah, I'll give it back to you. Yes, I will. I'll be happy to do that, Dan. And again, thank you, Dan.
Oh, not a problem, not a problem. Thank you. A lot of people probably will follow up and ask questions. Jim, did you have something you were going to do?
I do. So I had seen Don's presentation, but so much of it is what he has to say to go with the slide. So that was fun for me too. Okay, I'd like to screen share here. Everybody, can you guys see that?
Yes, we can.
Great. All right. I'm going to need help, Don, on going forward on this. I haven't done it for so long. Which button?
I got to find my unmute button.
Okay, I found it.
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
Everything's fine. All right, so I'm just going to real quickly get this over with. I was licensed in 59 as KN0ZXU. And I took a break starting in 1970, basically focused on my career and family and so forth. I'm retired now. I was a programmer, then a systems analyst, so later a technical manager at a large corporation. So I'm really an IT person. I returned to the hobby in 2003 and got my extra, my focus. Most of my ham life was on HF, but I started using D-Star in around 2010, thereabouts. I got a D-Star radio at Dayton in 2007, but I really wasn't active for a couple, 3 years. I still love HF, and I just got a new ICOM 7300, which is not new on the market, but I just love, it's new to me, new for me, and I just love it. Besides ham radio, I show dogs, as Dan mentioned earlier. I have 3, and I'm beginning getting a 4th one in a month. I'm also president of the Pulley Club of America, which is an American Kennel Club affiliated club, breed club. I try to stay technically current. I do my son's business in Germany as a language school, and I do his website. I do the website for the dog club and various other things like that. And then I have a kind of a private goal of trying to become fluent in German. I took it in college and lost it for many years. And since my son lives in Germany now, I'm trying to get it back. So I can't say I'm fluent, but I can get along for an hour or two with somebody in German and not have to use any English. So the question I get here in Northern California, I live in San Francisco, East Bay, is why digital voice? So this is a real quick slide. I'm going to be going, hang on, strap on your seatbelt. I'm going to be going real fast here. But the bandwidth, as the FCC is moving all the other radio services to narrowband, hams are starting to do some of that. And digital voice modes, as opposed to traditional FM, analog FM, use no more than 12.5 kilohertz when it's tuned up right. Or in cases of things like D-Star, will use only 6.25. The audio is very clear and quiet and hangs in there longer it just basically, you can hear it longer as you're driving farther away from the repeater or whatever. And then when you lose it entirely. What's nice about it is the radios can display call signs and text messages and so forth. It's based on a lot of robust networking, and I did get into Echolink quite a bit before digital voice, and Echolink was a great breakthrough. And in digital voice, we use a lot of the same ideas, but they call them different things. D-Star calls it a reflector, and DMR calls it a talk group, and Fusion calls it a room, but they're all ways of getting together and meeting electronically in ability. Basically, these are like conference servers. There's an awful lot of third-party development in digital voice, and we heard about Jonathan Naylor, G4KLX, that's very. It's the ham thing to do. We're always supposed to be experimenting, and this is what is happening. And you've already heard from Don about the various digital voice modes that are supported by the current software. I'm going to go real fast here, but most of us are familiar with digital modes like RTTY, PSK31, WSJT, and these are continuing to be improved. Digital voice is much, and digital data are really much newer in a lot of ways. And in the beginning, Japan Amateur Radio League helped a coalition of a group of radio companies to put together the D-Star protocol. And as I put it here, it was good. That is, it eventually worked. And at first, we mostly had standalone repeaters, but now they're connected together, and the network is what's really cool. In addition to that, people at the beginning were putting together home hotspots, and a hotspot is just like a simplex repeater. That is, you're not repeating out what somebody else is transmitting, but you can hear what you're connected to. You can hear network reflectors and rooms and things, so now we have repeaters. And the thing is, in those days, and by that I mean 5 years ago, everybody had a single mode hotspot or a single mode repeater. The other question I get is, well, do you think, Jim, that digital voice will replace analog? And I say absolutely not. I can never, ever see that. For one thing, some people will always prefer analog voice, and I understand that. The other thing is, in ham radio, modes mostly never go away. I mean, you could still have an AM QSO if you want. Certainly the CW is alive and well. And most hams have analog gear. You know, I mean, I absolutely do not believe that the digital voice is going to, or or does anybody want it to replace the earlier modes? But I do think someday, I may or may not be alive, but someday I think digital voice on VHF and UHF will be used more than analog. But right now it doesn't matter. We're having fun, and there's room for all of us in the tent. This is just a real quick slide to show that the whole idea is you're converting analog to digital, then you're compressing it. And right now we're using this AMBE chip, which contains proprietary codec or algorithm for compression decompression that is made by a company called DVSI. And that's the area where open source codec 2, M17, and so forth, may begin to, if you'll pardon the expression, chip away at DVSI's business. Not this decade, but I would think in 10 years it's going to start being a big deal. So then, of course, you take these this digital stuff, turn it into tones, run it through the modulator and send it out, and it's the reverse coming the other way. And so that digital voice is really pretty simple when you look at it like this. So here's MMDVM, and what happened is, I think Jonathan Naylor, having written some great software for just D-Star in the first 4 years of that decade, 2010 to 2019, I think he got a little bored and he decided to go for multi-mode. And that was his name, by the way. MMDVM stands for multi-mode digital voice modem, but MMDV is, of course, what we're really talking about tonight. As the technology evolved, people like Don took the plunge and set up multi-mode repeaters. At the same time, board designers were creating hotspots, and now it's all, the software was hard to configure, and now everything's really pretty stable and quite easy to do. So what multi-mode does is allows you to have more than one mode if you want. Doesn't mean you have to. So when somebody asks me, well, I have a new D-Star radio and I'd like to have a hotspot at home, so I can, maybe I live too far from the closest repeater, I'll say, well, get a multi-mode system, but just configure it for D-Star because you only have the D-Star radio right now. But what happens is sometimes people later on get a DMR radio or a fusion radio, and so what happens is the same hardware and software can support all these different modes, but one set of provisioning, if you will. We've talked about these, but we've talked about D-Star being developed early on with the Japan Amateur Radio League. DMR, of course, as Don pointed out, is commercial and mobile. System Fusion is also designed for ham radio, and again, like D-Star, the identifier is the call sign, the ham call sign. They are able to have higher quality or more data with voice than D-Star and they're twice as wide. And then P25 is started in public safety, and is a lot of people who have learned P25 in their jobs at work, then that's one reason why Don has seen so much activity. These people have these skills, and now they can get used P25 radios and talk over K6PUW in the greater Los Angeles area. That's pretty cool. So people ask me, well, why multi-mode? So there are kind of two answers. For repeaters, in a lot of places, repeaters are still scarce resources. And in some cities, it's hard to get a coordination. So if you want to put up yet another mode repeater, it's hard to get a frequency pair. In smaller towns, there may not be a lot of people willing to put up and manage a repeater. At the same time, many analog and single mode digital voice repeaters are underutilized. So what's interesting is multi-mode allows more utilization of not idle, but underutilized scarce resources up on, particularly, they're not just scarce in terms of the money and stuff, but it's the personnel, the labor, and getting the spot high up. And around in California, that means trying to find a mountain where you can get an antenna or get on somebody else's antenna. For hotspots, the answer for why multi-mode is a little different. In the early days of D-Star, we had GMSK modems, and I actually had a little business for a while. And I think, Dan, I'll bet you I ran into you. I probably sold you a GMSK modem or helped you with one anyway. And yeah, and most of the multi-mode stuff that you'll hear on the network, if you will, on the reflectors in the rooms, comes from home users with low power hotspots. Quite often somebody starts with one mode, and it's hard to say which they'll start with. It depends on what their friend has and what they heard about, but it doesn't matter. But then maybe next year they'll get themselves another mode radio, and now they have two different digital voice mode radios, let's say DMR and D-Star, and by having a hotspot that can do more than one mode, they are able to use them both. They're easy to set up. There are crazy people like me that have multiple hotspots at home, but any hotspot can be configured for just the one mode, and then later you can enable another one if you want. So how do they work? Don covered this. I'm just going to go real quickly. I mean, the admin enables more than one digital voice mode, and when there's no traffic, the repeater is sitting there looping, listening for anything, any RF. And when they hear it, the software attempts to figure out which mode is it, and then it switches to that mode. And now the mode is going to get repeated, and there'll be a hang time when you stop, and before I respond to you, it's going to lock into the mode that was just repeated, so another mode cannot interrupt and hijack the repeater. And so one of the things that I've learned is you have to learn how to set that mode hang time so it's reasonable. And then the other education that I'll mention again, but Don said users need to learn to glance at their radio before hitting push to talk. I mean, the normal thing is if you don't hear anything, you can grab the mic and hit push to talk. Now you gotta know, for if you're tuned into a multi-mode repeater, that just because you don't hear anything, it could still be busy. So you just glance at the faceplate of your radio. Oh, it's busy right now, I'll wait. So this just becomes a new habit. Once the current mode stops being active, the repeater goes back to listening for all enabled modes. So it's pretty simple. Here's a typical hotspot because I show a picture of one from Zoom Radio, the KI6ZUM, lives in Southern California. He sells his through a ham radio outlet, and they're pretty neat. They work well. He's one of the premier providers of multi-mode hotspots. The other one on the right is one from Lone Star. I think it's called N5BOC, and this particular one is a duplex. And I'll just mention that most of these things have 10 or 20 milliwatt radio chips in them, little tiny antennas. They have a Pi hooked up to it that runs the G4KLX software. There's a little enclosure that most people like to put on just to protect it all, and often people will put a little OLED screen there. You can buy the pieces and put them together, which is what I like to do, but you can also buy them pre-built and ready to go. Most of the time, you only need simplex, D-Star, Fusion, and so forth. DMR if you get a duplex hotspot, and the one over here, the upper right is the photo of the N5BOC duplex hotspot board. You can see there's a place for 2 antennas. And, you know, he separated by as much as he could there by about 3 or 4 inches. The reason is DMR can have 2 simultaneous QSOs, 2 talk groups, 2 time slots. And so it makes it easy to monitor 2 at home. So that is kind of the background from a technical point of view. One reason why I think Dan wanted to include me in this presentation is here that the local club where I live, W6CX repeater is a product of the Mount Diablo Amateur Radio Club. And what the technical committee asked me to do is to configure a replacement for our D-Star repeater to turn it into a multi-mode repeater running both D-Star and DMR. Right this minute, that is not installed yet, but right this minute, we have a really fine analog 2-meter VHF repeater, wonderful coverage, and a D-Star repeater. It also has good coverage, and there's a reason for that. They have a very, very beautifully tuned combiner system. So both of those repeaters are sharing the same antenna, and with a wonderful set of notch filters and other magic. They neither, the analog repeater can be blasted out full power when the D-Star repeater is not desensed at all whatsoever, and vice versa. So the tech committee guys who tuned those things are magicians. And then the other thing that got us going was we had a nice DMR repeater up on the same mountain, little different location, and that repeater, DMR repeater, has been shut down. So we have a bunch of DMR repeaters here who don't have a VHF repeater to talk to anymore. So our tech committee and our club decided we would give this a try and convert our D-Star repeater to a multi-mode D-Star DMR repeater. And our D-Star repeater has been moderately busy, but we think there'll be increased usage and, if you will, utilization. So I've got everything about half a foot from me, and it's not quite ready to go up on the hill, but it's been a fun project. So I think Don explained it when he had the photo, so I'll just zip through this. You need a modem, you need a Pi. You typically load the Pi with a Pi image called Pi Star. Absolutely wonderful work from a guy in the UK. I think it's I can't remember, MWZ, yeah, is his call sign. He uses a browser to manage the G4KLX software. You need a transmitter and a receiver, and the only thing that's important is that you have to be able to get flat audio directly out of the discriminator, unprocessed, you know, no processing at all, and be able to send flat audio into the modulator. And that's true of an awful lot of radios out there. Everything else, of course, you need duplexers and notch filters and many times and transmission line tower and so forth. So it's a regular computer with this other stuff. I wanted to have this especially because I've learned a lot just listening to what Don did in Los Angeles. The key learning is make sure your users know to check if the repeater is busy before they hit push to talk. Silence does not mean it's open and ready to go. Set the hang time so that if somebody is a little slow to come back to respond in a QSO, another mode can't take it over, because that's frustrating. If I'm talking on D-Star and the DMR suddenly takes over, you also don't want it to be so long that you can't get in after the other people are done. So setting the hang time for the administrator is important, and whether it be 10 seconds or 20, it's in that range. Do not default connect your gateway to busy reflectors, talk groups, rooms. It's just going to take over. That mode will take over, and you won't really have a multi-mode repeater anymore. You'll just hear all the traffic from that busy. If you're familiar with D-Star, probably the busiest reflectors are reflector 1 Charlie and reflector 30 Charlie. You wouldn't want to put either one of those as your default reflector for D-Star, because it would just be running D-Star all day. And then you can, for scheduled nets, you can set it up so that that mode, whatever DMR, whatever, is going to be the only mode during that net. So these are some lessons learned that I learned from Don and other reading. But I also learned some things myself. I was asked to do this project, and I thought, well, this should be easy. You know, I gave a ridiculously quick time when I thought I'd be done. Hasn't gone that way at all. Well, I got D-Star working almost right away, not so much on DMR. It turns out I was getting RF into my receiver because I didn't set up the same antenna system that will be true when we get it up on the hill. So I was getting RF into my receiver, and for some reason, D-Star put up with it, but DMR is so time sensitive, it just couldn't. And the other thing is, I was given, a club member donated a Motorola repeater. It's a really fine repeater, built like it's a real workhorse. And its receiver inside is not a traditional analog receiver with discriminator. It's digital signal processing, and it takes longer for the signal to get through that logic, and enough milliseconds to change everything. And so this has been a good learning experience for me. We have a saying in our dog competition that you should train like you compete, compete like you train. In other words, I should have done my configuration and testing with the same duplexer system or antenna system that we're going to have up there, and I have learned my lesson. In the future, where are we going? This Codec 2 open source, the M17 project, I see the open source codecs as being slow to come on, but I think in the long run, it's going to happen. And we may see M17 radios, we may see multi-mode radios. To me, there's a lot of new stuff to be done. Even though we're so blessed to have so much of it done already, there's still more to do. Last slide here is some things which, when Dan sends out or makes available the slides, you'll be able to get these links. Jonathan, whose photo you've seen when Don was visiting, has made a couple of really good presentations. One was at PacificCon a couple of years ago, and he told me he finally kind of got the presentation right. He had been working on this at various ham fests, and he kind of liked what that came out. And then he's done another one just recently at the Bolton Wireless Club in the UK, and so those are both worth watching. He has a Facebook page. Don gave you his K6PUW. Our Mount Diablo Amateur Radio Club's website is here. And then I just happened to list a couple of the modems if people are interested. So that's it for me. Dan, if you could set it up for questions, that would be great.
And we'll keep both these guys highlighted here so that they can answer. What you typically do is you hold up your hand and we'll call upon you, or type your questions into the chat. If you're unfamiliar with holding up your hand, down at the bottom of your screen to the right, you'll see a thing called reactions. You click on that, and the one at the very bottom is raise your hand. I just raise mine. You can see it up there, and of course lowers it. And that prioritizes you. It brings you out so that we see you have a question to ask. So, are there any questions out there, folks?
Hey, Dan, I'd like to say first that there was a question that came in the chat room while Jim was speaking, and maybe I should try to just address that first.
Okay, sure.
Okay, and it was, can you compare hotspots? Which hotspot is the best? Is that the Ford, the Dodge, or the Chevrolet? You know, yeah. ZUM makes a good product. Jim was showing his duplex board. Well, this is a duplex hotspot. Shamefully to say, I bought it from China. The board is a cheap knockoff. It's sitting on a Raspberry Pi, which is mine, and I bought the case for it. Does it work? Yeah. I have no idea why anybody, and I told this to Jim, we talked about this. I bought it because I like experimenting. I have no idea why anybody wants to buy a duplex hotspot, because the only thing you gain is 2 time slots on DMR. And I don't know about anybody else, but I only have one mouth and I can only talk on one radio at a time. But that's, anyway, yeah.
But that's precisely, if you're a DMR aficionado and you want to have both time slots available to you, then you want a duplex hotspot. And I would both both Zoom radio sold through ham radio outlet, and N5BOC. This happens to be an N5BOC duplex hotspot, but both of those are good duplex hotspots. And if you're a DMR person, get a duplex probably, and if you're not, don't. I
mean, hotspots, I have a plethora of hotspots. I had tons of hotspots. I used to have 4 or 5 GMSK modems from Dutch Star and wherever. And I think I still have 1 or 2 of Jim's. So, I mean, it's yeah, if you're going to buy one, I think the ZUM modem is probably going to give you the best performance. You know, that's about as you know. Maybe Jim wants to add to that. You know, I mean, we both.
Well, yeah. The other thing is the other thing I'll add is that I'm sorry.
No. I was just saying we both know Kaz6 ZUM.
Yeah.
I used to be in the same club as he did, and Jim knows him from. So yeah. They do build good stuff.
The Zoom radio stuff is good, and one other little addition is that Jim KI6ZUM was very helpful in writing some of the early firmware for the MMDVM modems, the firmware that runs on in the board itself. This thing here is a hotspot. It looks like a single unit, but what's in there is on the backside, you can see there's a Raspberry Pi W, and on the front, plugged into it, is the MMDVM modem. And it has a chip in memory on it, and it's running firmware. And then it's plugged into the Pi, which is running the G4 KLX software to go to the network and stuff. So there's a lot of complexity in this little tiny box. Okay. Well, you might as well take the next one. What is the best hotspot for cross mode, Don? I'm
unmuting now. Yeah. Best hotspot for cross mode. Well, I would guess I would have to say the ZUM would be the best one for cross mode because you know what makes cross mode work well is Pi-Star and MMDVM. You know, it's amazing that these things can run on a Pi Zero W, and they do. I've taken this one on trips in Europe, all around South America. You plug it in and it works.
You know, it's funny though, Don, is I thought you were going to say OpenSpot because it can do its own cross mode.
Well, you know, yes. And wait, let me pull mine out. I got it here. Yeah, I have it here somewhere. Oh, the OpenSpot is an interesting device. It will do cross mode because it has a DVSI chip in it. Okay. This is OpenSpot 3. OpenSpot 4, I think, will be a little bit better. I think this is a little short on memory, although I've never really had that much of an issue with it. It does work. Thank you, Jim. You know, old age creeps in every now and then, you know, but yeah, they both need radios. They both need RF radio. Okay, you have to get into them with handheld or mobile or whatever, but and they do cross mode. The DVSI does sound a lot better. Well, I can't say a lot better. It does sound a little better. Technically, it's probably better than the software versions, but I mean, Pi-Star is coming along great.
Yeah.
So
I'll say one other thing about cross moding, and that is that it can be achieved legally by using a pair of DVSI AMBE chips. Some people sell hotspots where at least part of it is using code that is probably, strictly speaking, not legal. I am not an expert, so don't quote me, but my guess is that's true. And to be honest, you know, life is short and we probably don't have time to worry too much, but I'm one of those where if I see somebody violating a license, I probably just won't put my money there, but the next person might. So,
Northwest Digital makes the thumb DVs, which are incredible little products, and they have the DVSI chip in it. It takes two of them to do cross moding because they're single channel. But if you want to do cross moding, a Raspberry Pi will do it for you, and you can go out and make your little cross moding server, a transcoding server, and go for it. Have fun. Experimenting. That's what amateur radio is all about. Get out
yeah.
there and play. Hey, and you know what? If you fail the first time, you're gonna get it next time. That's how we learn.
Yeah. There's a question about Blue DV, you know, you were talking earlier, Don, about Jonathan G4KLX being such a nice guy, and I met him when he came out to Pacificon. What is his call? PA7LIM Blue DV.
Yeah.
He is a nice guy. I met him at Dayton, and very, very, very creative. We're blessed to have these developers in our hobby. And Blue DV is great. And I've used it when I travel. I have it on my tablet. And there's some technical ways of having to lash it up so you can do different modes. But the bottom line is he did a beautiful job, a beautiful interface. So I can highly recommend Blue DV. I don't want to get into the details here, but the question was, what do I think? And I like the Blue DV a lot. Any other questions? And maybe Dan, if some of them are going to come over, voice. I've just been looking at the chat, but maybe there's some by voice. I don't know.
Yeah, nobody's been raising their hand. We're okay that way. And you guys,
Okay.
the chat's pretty good, so go ahead.
All right.
Looks like
Well,
we got it covered, Dan.
I'll be sure to send you the slides, and so I guess we're done.
Yeah, I will too. Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Should we put them into a single? Why don't we send him one file with both of them, Don? I'll send mine to you, or you can put them together.
That works for me.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, I'll do that. Just yeah, very nice group here.
Thank you very much for inviting.
Yes, and I'll be popping in on some other, some other ones you have. This is great.
This is super.
Yeah.
Over to you, Dan.
Yep. So once again, if anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate to email. I'm happy to answer what I can, and if I can't, I'll send it to Jim and he'll answer it.
Okay, I will make sure that the contacts are in there, so when we send that stuff out, so they can get a hold of you. There's a lot of people here that are new to digital voice. Some of them are not so new. They're just looking at what's available. So you got a mixed bag of different kind of your audience here tonight.
Question in the chat. Do you want to handle that one now, Jim?
Let's see.
Oh, something about Wires X.
Oh, that's an interesting question. I think the question is, will Yesu has tried to go it alone and has not tried to work with Jonathan at all. And so what Jonathan has done is he's been leveraging the capabilities in the Yesu radios without trying to duplicate Wires X. And so I guess the answer is, for the short run anyway, no, I don't see that happening. But at the same time, if you have a Yesu digital voice radio, you're going to be very happy with MMDVM because there's a lot of support. And Jonathan has been working to add, what is that, DGID, so that you can be able to have the radio switch. I've forgotten what his details, but the answer is the current MMDVM efforts respect the Yesu hardware a lot, but haven't been depending on the Wires X software solutions.
Yeah, Yesu is in a way like ICOM. They're very protective. The repeater gets into Wires X because I have one of the users has a Wires X system, and he RFs it up to the hill, and that way K6PUW looks like it's on Wires X, which it is not. If I had a Yesu box up there, a Yesu repeater, I could do that, but I don't want the limitations that a Yesu repeater would give me. I'm much happy with the Motorola radios. I think Yesu has come out with a couple of things to try to foil MMDVM, and no, because Yesu will not make their Wires X box connect to anything other than a Yesu radio. I think that's an indication that they're going to be hard-nosed about it for a while. Now, yeah, okay. Once again, you can't knock these companies. These companies have stockholders. They have business. Amateur radio is a very small portion of these companies, and they do have some stuff that they have to protect. But it not good for us. It fragments digital voice way too much, and digital voice is pretty fragmented as it is now. So, okay. Dan, I'll get off my soapbox now.
Oh, you're doing fine. You're doing fine. Are there any more questions out there? I don't see any hands raised. Barry, what do you look at for the tech stuff?
We look good.
Okay. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I look like we've had another good one. Jim and Don will send us the stuff. I'll get it out to everybody, all the presentation stuff here. And look forward to, well, we have another one tomorrow, presentation.
Well, thank you again for inviting us. We certainly appreciate it, Dan.
Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you for coming.
I hope to see you run the ARL one day.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
We'll see you.
Right.
Take care, Jim.
7:31. It's good to see you.
Take care.